in recognition of Women's History Month. And again, I like to bring a piece of my hometown into history. Evelyn Thomas Butts was a seamstress from the Oakwood section of Norfolk who rose to regional prominence in the 1960s during the fight to overturn Virginia's poll tax, a fee which was imposed on poor and primarily black citizens who tried to vote. In the South, Jim Crow was the law of the land, and barriers to advancement were numerous, and forcing the poor to pay money to vote was considered one of the many insults against social equality. Virginia was one of 11 southern states that had poll taxes. In November 1963, Evelyn Thomas Butts and her attorney, Joseph A. Jordan Jr., filed the first suit in federal court seeking to have the poll tax declared unconstitutional. She argued that the poll tax put an unfair financial burden on citizens in the exercise of their constitutional rights of citizenship, which violated the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause. In March 1964, Annie E. Harper and a group of people from Fairfax County filed another federal lawsuit against the poll tax. These two cases were later combined, and on March 24, 1966, the United States Supreme Court ruled in the combined cases called Harper versus Virginia State Board of Elections that used the poll tax that use of the poll tax in all elections was a violation of the United States Constitution. The decision ended the use of poll tax in Virginia, and a provision of the Virginia Constitution was added in 1971, which explicitly prohibits requiring payment of a poll tax as a prerequisite to be able to vote. Through registration drives, political education, endorsements, and working at the polls, Evelyn Butts helped to elect Joseph Jordan, the city council, who was its first African American member in the 20th century. And the following year, the citizens group helped to elect a name that may be familiar to you all, William P. Robinson, the first African American ever to represent Norfolk in the House of Delegates. Now, the late Delegate Robinson is a whole Black history moment by himself, and we'll probably talk about him next year. As president of the Oakwood Civic League, Evelyn Butts helped persuade Norfolk to erect Rosemont Middle School so that children from the neighborhood would not have to ride the bus to a segregated school across town. Butts was the first Black woman appointed to the Norfolk Redevelopment and Housing Authority. She served for 12 years from 1975, and in 1982, the governor appointed her to the State Board of Housing and Community Development. Evelyn Butts passed away in 1993, and in November of 1995, the Norfolk City Council renamed Elm Street in her honor, and today there is an HRT bus transfer center also named in her honor. Evelyn T. Butts is a true trailblazer for equality, and as Norfolk's former vice mayor, Joseph N. Green Jr. once said, she is as much responsible for the presence of minority persons in elective offices throughout this country as anyone because of her stand on the poll tax. Locally, she inspired many of us. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.